Hey, what's up? My name is Chris, and welcome to the fourth and final in this short series on creating your own custom JavaScript filter. Now, we've done this with just HTML, CSS, and today, JavaScript. What we're going to do is add the functionality to where you can come in here and search for something like HTML or whatever. Oh, there's no HTML. Well, you can't do that. How about XML? All right, there's some XML documents here, and it's searching all the text inside each card. Now, it's doing it really quickly in spite of the fact that we're using client-side JavaScript, and there's more than 600 different posts it could be choosing from. I'll show you how we're doing that, how we're accomplishing that kind of speed here in just a second. Now, if you want to follow along and you haven't been coding along so far, you can come to the GitHub link, go to lesson 4, download the code right here, and then you can follow along that way. Of course, you can just clone the whole thing and navigate to that branch if you'd prefer that. But without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, so this is the code we've got so far, and you'll notice we got this little skeleton animation. We did that last time. We've also got the styling, and it's all based on this kind of hue color. And so we can actually come over here. Let's just play around for a second before we get going too far today. And we can come in here and change this hue to like 120, and it actually shifts the colors for everything because of the way we set that up. In fact, all right, you want to do something fun? Let's do something fun real fast. If I come over here to the HTML, let's come down to the bottom. And let's see, above the script, we had a little input field here, or this button class. Let's add an input field right here. We're just going to add this input, and let's see, let's change the type to, we need a range, and then we'll set a max of 360. Because we're using HSL, it'll actually loop around, so it's not a big deal if we let it just loop, but might as well stick it to 360 down to 0 or 1, I guess it would be. So let's do that, and then let's write a little script here. And inside here, let's say document.querySelector, and let's look for type equals range. And this needs to be in quotation marks. And then we'll say .add event listener. And we're going to listen for input, and then we'll take the the event itself, and let's go ahead and say we need to actually get, let's see, the root. So we'll say document.querySelector, because that's where we defined the variable itself. And we'll say we want the root. And then we're going to say style.setProperty hue. That was the name of the hue, that variable we created. And we're going to set it to, in backticks here, let's do e.target.value, so the value of the input field. Okay, this should be fun if I did this right. Let's come down here. We can just slide this around. Oh yeah, look at that. It's live updating. Okay, so I guess you could do something like that if you wanted to on your site for somebody, but this updates all of those colors. Now, because we don't actually have the real cards in there, you're not getting the full effect. But anyhow, so that just shows you why, one of the reasons that it's cool to use these CSS variables. You can use JavaScript and just update them. All right, now this was 220. Let's get rid of all this stuff. What were we supposed to be doing today? I think we were supposed to be working on the JavaScript, so let's go do that. All right, so let's go to the top of the page, and hopefully you are still with us. Script, src, and let's make a file, and we're going to call it, filter.js. Now, because we're loading it in the head, if you're ever going to do this, you've got to defer it if you're going to use anything on the page so that it loads after the page is done. We are going to go ahead and change this to type equals module, because we're going to have several kind of globally scoped variables, and we want to limit them to this module so that they're namespaced here. And if we ever want to use one of those variables in another JavaScript file, it won't conflict. Okay, so I've got that set up. Let's open the side panel here, and then I'll create a new file. We'll just call it filter.js. All right, and then to make sure everything is working, we'll say console.log, hello. Okay, and then let's save it and close the sidebar, open up the console here, and hello. Perfect. And I forgot we had this on slow G, 3G from last time. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so everything is set up here. Let's kind of think through the steps we need to take here, and that way we have a sense of where we're going with this project. Now, the very first thing we'll need to do is fetch the data itself. All right, then we're going to parse through it, and we're going to create the cards and update the UI. All right, so that's the very first thing we're going to do. We also have this little button at the bottom of the page to view more posts. So we'll need a way to control how many posts are shown. We don't want to show all 600. That would definitely be slow and bad for performance. So let's do something like update number of posts with button click. All right, and then finally we need to set up a filter for the search. Okay, I think that's mostly everything we need to do. There might be some things I forgot about that we'll hit along the way. Let's go ahead and fetch the data. I've got a boilerplate that I use for this. I'll just paste it in here and explain it to you. Basically, it is an async await function, so it allows us to do things one after the other. And I'm going to name this. Let's name this fetch posts, something like that. I'm go ahead and I'm invoking it right away down here as soon as we're done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fetch a file, and this will be posts.json. Is that what it's called? Post.json, yeah. All right, so we'll see what's in that file, but it's a huge object that we created, and I've done a video on my channel explaining how I did that. If you're interested in that, feel free to check that out. Let's come down here then, and let's console.log the data. All right, let's pull this up and see what we got. Okay, so we've got an array with 600 items. We probably don't need that many items. So for now, let's just say a 0. That way we just see what's in one of them. So you'll notice that each of these objects has several things. It's got a meta object in here that has the author. This author has avatar, it has a job title, it has a name array, and each of these arrays have objects inside them. So it's just lots of nesting. We've also got tags here. This one looks like just one in this array. Okay, so we've also got a summary, we've got a title, we've got the user, and they've also got the same avatar and a job title, a name. So lots of nesting. We need to find a way to filter through this to kind of to clean this data up to make it useful. So if we want to access all this data, we need to declare some kind of variable and then be able to tap into it here once we fetch the data. So let's come up top here, and at the top we're going to just do some query selectors. The first thing we're going to do is declare a variable. Because we're going to be updating it, we'll say let, and then we'll set it equal to posts, and that will just be an empty array. Let me save this. All right, my ESLint is changing that to const. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Let's see, ESLint. Get out of here. Disable. Reload. Okay, that should be good. We got rid of that. Let's change this back to let, and all right, perfect. Now I did kill my server. Let's open this back up again. All right, nothing like a little ESLint messing with you. Okay, so we've got our posts here. Let's go ahead and then just set our posts to the data, and we'll just do 0 for now. And then once we've got our post variable updated with the correct info, let's go ahead and run a function that we're going to call load posts, like that. And let's come up top and let's write that. So I guess that would be this section here. So let's pull all this down. That way we keep things kind of in order with the things that we said we were going to do. All right, so fetch data at the very bottom of the file, and then up here, let's write that function load posts, like that. Now it might be tempting to go ahead and generate all the divs and that kind of stuff right now, and then slowly append them one after the other to some element in the UI, that post container. But what we're going to do is actually create a document fragment, populate it with all the divs we need, and then just one time send it out to the browser. That's one of the reasons this can be so quick. So I'm going to come in here and say const frag, and we're going to say document.create document fragment, and just like that, okay? And then we're going to update this document fragment with children. So we're going to add children to it. So let's take our posts, and we're going to say, let's see, now we want a certain number of posts. So rather than just passing it in down here and kind of limiting it this way, let's go ahead and remove that, and let's create another variable up top here. Let's call this const max display limit, something like that, and we'll set it to, let's have 6 posts show by default. Now we can use this constant up here to actually set how many posts we want to display when the page loads. So we'll come back down here and we're going to say we want to slice 0, so this is the very first item in our whole array, to our max display limit. So let's go ahead and do that. And first of all, let's just console.log this like that and see what shows up. Oh, it looks like I added that on the wrong side of it. Okay, here we go. So you see I'm getting 6. I'm just getting the first 6 in our array. So we've got 600, but I'm only getting 6. That's what I want. Now, what I want to do is I want to work through each of these, and I want to map over them. So I'm going to map over these. This is an array method. Since we've got an array, we can use this. So we want to grab our post here, and then what we want to do is we want to say our frag we need to add to it, we need to append a child. So append child, and we're going to take each of these items that get passed through, and we're going to send it through something that will generate all that divs and the buttons and all that kind of stuff, all the UI elements. So let's call this generate post like this, and we'll pass the post to it. All right, we don't need a console.log this. Let's just get rid of this. And then let's go ahead and let's write this up above here. So we'll say function generate post like this. It's going to take in a post. And then let's go ahead and write this function. So in here is where we'll actually create some actual elements for the UI. So we're going to say we want an article. First of all, that's what they're all wrapped in. Document.create element, and we're going to create an article like this. Okay, so now this article itself needs a class list, so class list.add. We're going to add the class that wraps everything, this article, which was post. That's what we used to style the CSS and all that kind of stuff. Then what we can do is we can say we want the article dot inner HTML, and we're going to set this to, and if I add backticks here, I can actually just do multiple lines and write HTML just like this right in the JavaScript file. Now, rather than write this all out ourselves, let's jump back over to our HTML. Remember, we had that skeleton area here. This is the article. Let's just copy all this out again, like this. Jump back over here. Let's paste all this in. Now, we don't need an article tag because that's obviously what we're putting this all into. So let's get rid of this. You see that had the class of post. Okay, so perfect. So now we've got all the sections. We're ready to write out what we need. Now what we're eventually going to do is add all those elements from each of these objects into this HTML. And then we're going to go ahead and return it. So let's return it just to make sure everything is working. So we'll say return article like that. And it should add those back in. Now I'm realizing we haven't actually updated the HTML, so nothing's going to happen yet. So let's come back to our load posts here. And now we're going to say, let's set our post container dot inner HTML. Let's set it to our frag. Let's see what happens. Oh, you know what? We haven't actually declared our post container. Let's do that up top here. So we'll say const post container is equal to document.query selector, and we're going to add post container in there, just like that. All right, let's come back down this way, and now this should be working. Let's see. Oh, you know what? We don't want to set the inner HTML. We're just going to append the child of the frag here. All right, this is yelling at us, so let's see what's going on here. Let's console.log the frag and see what we're getting. All right, we're getting a document fragment, which is what we'd expect, and it's got our 6 posts in it. And they've all got the skeleton stuff in it. All right, that's good. Let's console.log our post container and make sure that that's working. We're getting null. All right, so I messed something else up here. This should be post, let's see, container, like that. All right, there we go. And now we should have 6. There we go. Oh, we got a lot. All right, so we'll have to figure that out. Let's also come in here. Oh, you know what? We've got our 3 original and 6 more. So let's do this. Before we append the child, let's post container dot inner HTML. We've got to set this to nothing. All right, so let's clear out whatever was there and then add these in. Now our styling goes away right away because part of that skeleton loading thing was loading a style tag in there, and we got rid of that. So obviously this doesn't look right yet, but that's because it all has this skeleton stuff on it. We'll get rid of that in a second. All right, so let's get rid of this post container console log. We don't need that anymore. But let's come up here and let's see. Let's move this to 1. So we're only having to worry about 1 right now, which should just load 1 in there. And then when we come in here, let's console, let's see, I guess right above here, let's console.log the post, just so we can see what we're getting. We'll expand this out here, and let's think through what we need. So first of all, we got these tags. Let's get rid of all these skeletons. I'll select the first one, hit Command D, grab all the rest of these. Let's get rid of those. We don't need those anymore. We also don't need this, all right, because that was just filler text. Okay, so back up this way. Let's get this spaced out properly. We've got these tags, and if I come back up here, let's see, it's in the meta area, and then tags, and then it's an array. And sometimes there'll be 1, sometimes there'll be 10. You know, there could be many of these. So we need to figure out a way to dynamically generate these spans when we need them. So let's get rid of one of them, and then let's write some little code in here, and it's in backticks, so we can add this template string and write a function right in here. So let's go ahead and grab our post .meta.tags. So that should give us that array. And since it's an array, we'll map over it. And we're going to say we want the tag. And then we'll take the tag here and we'll say for each of those, let's just grab the span right here. So for each tag, we want to insert this right here. And we do need to actually add this in backticks. So we'll do that. We'll come in here and we want the tag like this. So we'll add that again. And then when we're all done with those, that'll just give us them all separately. We actually want to join them in a string. So let's say .join, and then we'll join them on nothing. So if I do that, it should actually give us all of them, and it's giving us service worker. Let me come in here. Let's see. Let's grab like 3 just to see if we can get one that's got multiple ones. Okay, yeah, so it's actually setting them out separately. All right, perfect. Okay, so we've got that worked out. Let's now work on the date. So if I come back in here, let's see where the date is. It looks like it's inside here. So we've got date inside the meta tag. So again, we're going to add a little template string here, and we want the post.date. No, post.meta.date. Now if I do that, it's just going to give me the string, and I actually want to display it like October or August or whatever, 13th, 2021. So to do that, I actually need this to be an actual JavaScript date. So we're going to say new date like this. That doesn't really fix it though, because now I've got this long string and I don't want that either. So tell you what, let's write another little function that will generate this for us, and we'll just pass this whole new date thing to it. So let's say return post date like this, and we'll wrap all of this in parentheses here. And then we're going to pass this to return post date. And because we're only going to ever use it here, let's just write it up top here. And we'll write it as a little arrow function. So return post date is equal to, we got the date that we passed in, and then let's come in here, it's going to automatically return whatever is after these arrows here. So let's come in here, and what do we want to return? Well, there are several date things we can work with JavaScript. Let's say JavaScript date, how about that? All right, in here, we're going to want several things. If we want the date, as in the month, and then the day of the month, and then the year, we've got to look at a few things. So let's find these. We're going to need get month like this. And if I come here and jump into this MDM doc, you'll see that I'm going to actually get a number where 0 is January all the way up to 11, which would be December. So we need to do something to figure out how to work with that. So that's the first thing. We're also going to need get date like this. And get date will give us, let's see, the actual date of the month. And it's not 0 indexed or anything like that. So that's a little easier to work with. And then we'll need get full year. And if I come in here, get full year is going to just give us the actual year. Okay, so those are the easier ones to work with. Where was this little function? Here it is. So we're going to want to return a string. So let's add backticks here. And then in here, let's get the date that we passed in, .get full year. Let's first of all see what happens there, and I actually have to run it. It's the method that lives on that event. Okay, so I'm getting the full year. That's good. Let's come in here. Let's copy this out. In addition to the full year, I also want get date. Was that it? All right, so now I'm getting the 13th, 2021, and let's add a comma. And this is backtick, so that's no problem at all. Now, the last thing we need is something to actually generate the month. So if I do get month like this, I'm just going to get 7. Which is not super helpful if I want it to say August or whatever. Now, there are some libraries that'll help you work with dates, but this is pretty quick and easy. Let's just write our own little thing here. Let's write an array, and in this array, we're going to have, let's see, let's space this out so we can see what's going on. We're going to have January. We're just going to type it like that because that's what we want it to look like. February, Fab February. March, April, May, June. Do you like watching me do this? You can do this yourself and speed this up if you want to. August, September, October, November, and December. So that's 0 through 11, if I did that right. Then what we're going to want to do is let's go ahead and add brackets here, and we can just add this directly in here because this will tell us the index we need. So let's do that. Come in here, just like that. Let's see if that works. August 13th. All right, perfect. So this is a little tiny function we've written that now is used down here whenever we're generating these cards. Now in here, in this post header area, you might remember we originally had an actual link tag here, an A tag, and we have to pass it some kind of reference to the actual URL, and then we'll close this out, and that was what was inside our H3. So first of all, let's get the text for the H3 we need to worry about. And if I open back up this object here, I've got the title, and that's what I'm going to want here. So all I have to do here is say post.title, and that should update for us, and it does. And then we need the reference we're passing here. So let's do that. Let's see, it's under meta maybe, and then URL. And right now I've just got these all set to basically nothing, but it's still good practice to work through this. So we're going to say post.meta.url. Just to make sure this is working, let's pull this up. Yep, okay, it pulled in there. So now post author. The avatar itself was originally an image, you might remember. And so we'll need an alternate here, and then we'll also need an SRC. All right, and let's figure out where that is. If I come in here to meta, let's see. Under author, I'm going to have an avatar, and then let's just give the name of the person. So let's see, their name is here, first and last. All right, so we're going to add that as the alternate here, and then that'll also be the same thing we use for name. So we'll kind of get double use out of that. So let's first of all come in here and let's add the SRC. This is going to be meta.author. You see I'm just kind of working down that tree here, that chain, .avatar, like that. And then let's see, for the name, so the first thing we're going to want is post.user.name. That gets us all the way down here. Then we've got to go into the 0 position and look at first name. So I can come in here and say the 0 position and then first name, like that. And then we'll do a space and we'll do the same thing, except this time we're going to say post.user.name, and we're going to go into the 1 position and look at last name. It looks like I didn't spell this correctly. That's not going to work if I mess that up. And we don't need this div because it is just an image tag now. So let's see if that worked. All right. There's been a problem. Meta is not defined. All right, so you probably saw that already, but I've got to say post.meta, and that should pull that in there. Okay, cool. So let's see if the alternate worked. And if it did, we can just copy that down. All right, it worked. Cool. So let's grab all this, and we're going to add that in our name here. Come back out to the console, and let's grab the author role. Now, even though this is a bit laborious, once you're done with this, you just do it once, and now it'll generate it for all the cards no matter what's going on. So we're looking at the job title there under the meta tag. So we'll come in here inside the small tags themselves. We'll add post.meta.job title. All right, we are mostly done. The last thing will be to come in here and we need to grab the post. Let's see what it is. I think it's just the summary. Yeah, so post.summary, summary like that. And then we will need some kind of link here. Oh, undefined. We're not getting the right thing. Job title. Let's see. Post meta author.job title. Author.job title. Okay, there it is. That's pulling in there. And then we do need a reference here. And it'll be the same as the reference we passed in for the URL for the actual header. So let's just copy that down and we're done. Okay, cool. So we've actually got that set and it should be pulling in. And we did remove the name. I forgot about that. The actual text for the button, which was, I think, read post, something like that. So that should pull in. Okay, so that means if we come up here and display like 4, it'll display 4. And if we do 6, it'll display 6. Okay, now we've got a couple things to worry about here. First of all, these are kind of randomized, their order. And so we've got April, we've got December. So how do we sort this data so that it actually comes to us in order? We could do this at a few different places, but why don't we do this when we first pull in everything? Let's do it at the fetch itself. So let's actually do some work on this data itself and then like kind of filter it or sort it according to what we need. So there is a method that's called sort. Let's pull this up. Sort right here, array.prototype.sort. So this lives on the mama array and we can sort any array. And if you walk through this, it's going to basically tell you that it uses UTF-16 code unit values. So what that means is it's converting numbers to strings and things like that. And so what we need to do is grab the date, but it's going to convert that to a string. And then we'll use that string to then compare to each other item in the array and order them from most recent to least recent. So they give kind of an example of how this works with numbers, which is similar enough, I think down here, yeah. So they've got an array, and they're basically going to say we're going to take the first and the second, we're going to compare them, and we're going to return them in order. So it's doing that one after the other, and once it's done with the whole thing, it will return an array that looks like this. So it'll be in order. So let's go ahead and do that. And maybe the first thing we should do, let's comment this out, and let's just say console.log data. All right, let's pull this back over this way. And if I open this up, let's go ahead and look at the first one just so we can see what's going on. So this is August 13th. That's one we were just messing with a second ago. So let's keep track of that, and as we move, we'll be able to see if we're actually making any kind of impact. So let's write sort here. It's giving us this example, and it's the one we just saw. So let's do A and B. We're just going to write a little arrow function here. We're going to use the date to sort them, so we need to go into meta and then into date. So we could say something like a.meta.date, like this, and then we could say minus b.meta.date. Now you might think that will work, but let's pull this up and see what it did. All right. Now, it might have this first one different, so nope, it looks like it's the same. All right, or pretty close to it. And we've got some that will be in October, so we know that's not quite right. So what it's doing is it's just taking that string and comparing it. What we actually want to do is create a new date and then use that as the string that we're comparing. So let's come in here and say new date, like this. And then again, we're going to come here and say new date. And then we're going to compare those two. So these JavaScript dates. And if I do this, it's going to open up. And let's grab the first one here. Oh, there we go, October. All right, perfect. This next one should be the 7th. Okay, so we're now, oh, this is 2020. So we're actually in reverse. So if we want to do this the right order, we need to do new date like this, minus new date like that. All right, now that should be correct. What? Reference error? All right, let's figure out what's going on. Let's get a little more space here. New date, meta. Let's see. Did I close this off early? I think I did. And I'm missing one line. Okay, we just, parenthesis problem. It happens. All right, I'm going to come over here, open this up. And now this should be by most recent to least recent, October 2021. All right, that's what we want. Okay, cool. So let's actually pass this in. And we're not console.logging this. We want to update posts to be equal to data.sort, all that kind of stuff. All right, so let's do that and get rid of our final console log parentheses. And now we're actually getting them in order, October 6th, 5th, 4th, 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 4th. All right, perfect. Okay, so that's in order. That's the first thing we need to worry about. Let's next come in here. Let me get rid of this console. And let's work on this view more posts button. Now, what do we want to happen when we click this? Well, what we really want is just for it to reload and actually change the number, the display limit. So let's first of all write a little query selector. Let's see, update number of posts with button click. Let's have document.query selector like this, and that was called button -- view. Now let's just add an event listener directly to this. We're going to listen for a click, and when that happens, we'll pass it a callback here, view more posts. And now we need to write this callback. So view, let's see, function, view more posts. Now what we really need to do is set the max display limit to itself plus itself. All right, so let's see, we could do that, but then the next time we run it, max display limit would already be double. So we'd be doubling it every time. So we probably need another variable up top. So let's do this. Let's say, let's actually create a true constant. And I mean, I say let's create it. It's the same thing, but usually you do these with like post to show like that. That's how you identify it. And we'll set that to 6th. And then we'll set this to post to show like this. So that means we can come down here and say we want this to be equal to plus equals posts to show like that. And then we just want to run load posts. All right, so if I come in here and I click this, let's see, nothing is happening. Let's see what's going on. Assignment to constant variable. I need to set this to let so I can actually use it. Okay, let's try it again. And I click this and I got 6 more. Cool. Now you might again be like, why didn't we just double this? If I come in here and let's do that, where's, Okay, so if I say plus equals itself, let's refresh this, let's kill this. So I've got 6 right now. If I click this, the first time it's going to just do 6 more. But now, what is max display limit set to? It's set to 12. So if I click this now, we're going to get 24 more. So you see how it's multiplying against itself or adding against itself. So by setting it to post to show, when I come back this way, the first time it's just going to say we need 6 more. And the next time it's going to say we need 6 more. And every time it'll be just like that because we're just adding it to here, right here. All right, there's probably another way to do that, but I think that's the easiest way that I can think of. All right, now we've gone all this way. We still haven't done anything with our filter. You might be like, what's up? I thought that was the whole point of this thing. Well, it is, but sometimes you got to do stuff to get ready for that. So let's go ahead and grab our search input field up top here. And we're just going to say const search is equal to document.querySelector. And then we're going to grab our, I think it was like type equals search, type equals search like this. All right, and that's our attribute selector. And let's use that down below here to write a little event listener. So we'll say search to add event listener. We're going to listen for a key up on that field. So anytime somebody presses a key and releases it, we're going to pass it to something called filter posts. And let's do that. Let me add. Okay, and let's come up here and write that. Let's see. I'm going to just go ahead and write it above the fetch here. Load posts. Let's do it right here. Okay, so function search posts. So what did I do 2 seconds ago? Filter posts. Okay. Now what I want to do is create a new array. It's not the same as our posts array. So let's go ahead and up top here declare a second one. We're going to call this filtered posts like this. And then let's go ahead and call that down this way or reference it. And we're going to say that filtered posts is equal to, and here we're going to say the posts dot filter. We're going to want to filter through all the items that came to us in our posts. So all 600 items, we want to filter through those and we want to pass them to something called search filter. And then once they're passed through that, we want to load our posts again, just like that. So let's come in here and let's say our const search filter. Let's just write it right here. It's only ever going to be used in here. So we'll write this little function, just this arrow function right in here. Now, what do we want to search through in each post? Well, we've got our post.title. That's the name of the title. We're going to pass these all in as an array, and then we'll just join them together here. Then we want our post.summary. That's the actual body. We can also pass the name, I guess. So what was that? Let's come up top here and just grab that rather than having to duplicate this. Let's grab all this stuff here. Post.user.name, we need that. Let's do a comma. Post.user.name, we don't need this. We could also get our tags. So let's come up here. Where were our tags? Our tags for each tag. Let's see, we'll have to map over that. So let's come in here and grab those. And then let's map over each of those and say for each tag, let's see. Let's do a tag like that. We just want the tag, I think. That's all we want. So for each of those tags, we want the tag. So in case you're lost at what we're doing here, all we're doing is we're creating an array here with all the items we want from this object. So we want to search all this text when we actually do our search filter. So let's copy this here and do console.log and just make sure that it's actually returning anything useful to us. Oh, we are actually console logging somewhere else. Console, let's see. Console.log post, we don't need this. Okay, and because we shouldn't get anything until we type. So if I type something, okay, now I'm getting every single item. It's looping through those. So that's way too much stuff to worry about. But you see what we've done here is we've just created an array where we get the text, the title, the tags here are listed out like this. Actually, let's do this. Let's come back down here. And what we need to do is not just map over these meta tags. We now need to dot join them like this on nothing. And then let's type something again. Okay, so we should actually be getting everything as text, just like this. We've got 5 things: our title, our post summary, the name, first and last, like that, and the meta tags just linked out one after the other. Looks like that one only has 1, this one has 2, and they're just a string. Okay, so we've got basically 5 items in each of these arrays that we're going to loop through to figure out what's inside of them, and if they compare to the thing that was just typed. So once again, it's an array. Let's map over that data. And we're going to take the text here, and we're going to say, we just want to take all that text and we want to dot join it. And again, we're going to just do it on nothing. And so if I come in here and type, we should now get just text all combined. Hey, this is future Chris. As I was editing this, I realized I got a little map happy. We don't need an extra map here. It's already an array, so let's just dot join it. So basically strip out this dot map thing and just have the dot join afterwards, and you're just fine. Now, in order to get consistent search, you'll see here we're going to get capital and non-capital letters. So let's go ahead and say, after we join it, let's space this out so it's easier to see what's going on here. So we've mapped it. We've now joined it. We've now lowercased it, and that will give us consistency. And then we're going to say dot index of. We're going to compare it to the search dot value, so the value that's been typed in, and then we're going to lowercase this to lowercase, like that. Now after all that, we're going to hit key here, and you're going to see we're going to get numbers back. What in the world's going on here? Well, dot index of is going to tell us if there's anything that matches it, and if so, how many things match it. So if I come in here and I type Java, it's telling me how many things match this and how many things don't. You'll see here I'm getting some -1s. Those -1s mean there is no match for that particular card, which means all I have to do is say if it doesn't equal -1, then I know there's a match. All right, so we've got this now. Let's just remove the console log. We don't need the console log. And we also don't need these brackets because it's just an arrow function. So now let's save it, see if it works, and then I'll walk you through that again in case that's confusing. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to start typing. I'm not getting any errors, but nothing is changing. Well, what's going on here? Well, you'll notice that I've got this filtered posts array, this new array, but when I actually call load posts, it's not working off that, it's working off posts. So what I need to do is actually change this to say filtered posts, because that's what I want to actually work off to update the UI. So if I save this, you might wonder, well, what's going to happen here? Because there is no filtered post to start with. And you're right, but before we try to fix that, let's see if our search actually works. So if I say JavaScript, yeah, so stuff is actually starting to come in live there. And you can see even as I keep typing, different things come in. I got to type, spell correctly, but you see that's coming in, it's pulling in tags, it's pulling in any text here. Let's see, JavaScript down here. And you see it's lowercasing it, so whether I do JavaScript like this or not, it's lowercasing everything. So why is it that when I refresh, nothing shows in the UI? Well, you might remember at the very beginning what we did is we called load posts. Now what that's doing is it's calling this right here, and it's running off a filtered post, which hasn't been run yet. So probably the easiest thing to do is just to actually run filter posts instead. So if I come back here, we're going to run filter posts. What that's going to do is it's going to run nothing through the filter and everything gets passed. All right, there's nothing that doesn't match that. So it just updates that filter post automatically. And that way we can use the same functions either way. So now let's walk through this one more time. First, what we're doing is we're fetching all the data and then we're sorting it by date. Then we're going to run filter posts, or we're going to compare whatever's in this field to every single item in our array. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, all right, let's go ahead, down here, let's update our filter post to be equal to all posts, which was the original array that was passed in, that fit this filter. Now, in this case, every single card is going to fit it. And then what it's going to do is it's going to load posts. That will create one document fragment and then take whatever our max display limit is and just send those numbers through our little generator up here. This generator will populate the UI with these divs, or populate this frag with these divs. At the very end, we'll reset all the HTML, and then we'll update that by adding these little children in here, this one frag element as a child, I guess, and it will add those 6 divs, or however many we add. Now, whenever we hit this bottom button down this way, here, view more posts, it's going to just say, hey, take whatever our max display limit is, basically add 6 more to that, or whatever the post to show we've got set. Then it's going to load our posts again, which will jump back up this way, and it will actually create the document fragment and add 6 more. In this case, this is now going to be equal to 12 at that point, and with slice, it doesn't take the final one, it just takes everything up until that, so it'll give us the first 12, 0 through 11, and it will generate posts for those. The other thing we did is we added this event listener for the search, and whenever we key up on anything in that input field, it's going to run our filtered posts. That will run everything through this again, load post one more time, and everything will work. Because we're doing all of this without any UI and then just updating the UI at the very end, it's extremely fast, even just with client-side JavaScript. And again, now I can come in here and type whatever I want, and it'll just update for me automatically. I hope that was a big help for you and fun to kind of work through that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try to keep an eye on it. A big thanks again to Sean for having me on, and I hope to see you over on my channel. All right, thanks so much. Happy coding.